Okay. So this is the Utility Rate Advisory Board meeting. It is December 3rd. We are starting a little bit late. We have a member that's running a tick late, so we tried to delay a little bit for that. So our previous chair, or the previous chair of the board was Lee Botts. Lee has had to step up for personal reasons, and so I think, Amy, because you were secretary of the board, I think that's next in line officially. So do you want to start us off and just call the meeting to order?
I call the meeting to order.
Okay. And will you lead nominations for chair, please?
Are there any nominations for chair?
I nominate Laura Ward.
Laura, do you agree or disagree?
I agree.
Okay.
Any other nominations for chair? All right, do we have a first? Or do we have a motion?
We have a motion. Do
Okay.
we need
Have
a second?
I second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Yeah. Okay.
Laura is our
All right.
chair.
Very good.
Now you can have the meeting.
Laura, thanks for taking that big bold move. I appreciate that very much. So, so if you're okay, I'll go ahead and run through the report a little bit
Yeah.
here. Just so if the public is watching, just so they're aware, Clerk Treasurer Leslie Robinson is here. Obviously, I'm Mayor, but we are missing the board member Denise Esterling. Like I said, she should be coming here shortly. So in front of you is the 2025 report from Baker Tilly. This is the comprehensive rate study. Maybe I'll set a little bit of a background information for public if they're watching, or at the very least, just to remind the board. So about 4 years ago, the council made a decision that instead of wanting to wait to the last moment and jack up rates on water, and then the next year high on sewer, and then next year on electric, and to do this kind of herky-jerky movement with utility rates, that instead there be a more methodical every year review of the utility rates to look at the future, what projects there is to do, as well as where we're at with reserves and all of those other things. So out of that came a 2 or 3 year plan, if you will, which is what we were on up to the last 2 years. We approved 2 different rate adjustments that kind of got us out of water a little bit in some of the areas, but in other areas we're still struggling a little bit. So that's what's in the report here. So this is kind of the new 3-year plan, if you will. Theoretically, you know, again, depending on what the council wants to do, what you all want to do, would start, what did we say, beginning of next year? Potentially, depending on where it hits. February. So if you go to page 1 of the report, that's really kind of a good overview of everything that's there. Did everyone get a report? Did I print off an extra one? Oh, I think this one is supposed to be Leslie's. So I know you probably have it though already, don't you?
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay. Well, anyway, so comprehensive utility rates summary there. You can see that we have multiple projects that are kind of on the horizon. The goal that Leslie and I kind of gave to Baker Tilly was we didn't want any more than a $10 additional per year. Let me be clear, $10 per month for the bill each year. So instead of doing a 15 this year and a 8 next year and a 20 next year, the year after that, we wanted to kind of balance out. So you can see that a little bit in here. It's overall, it's about a 3.51 average increase, annual increase in the total utility charges. Proposed rate will pay for approximately $13.6 million in needed capital investment. I will get into those details here in a moment, but you can see kind of the breakdown. As always, sewage works is always the most expensive, and it stinks, but we do believe that there are some additional state and federal mandates that are coming down the pipe, and so we're trying to be thoughtful of that going into this. So, primary drivers of the adjustments there, Sewage Works currently under its minimum level of cash reserves, and also identified roughly $7.5 million in necessary capital improvements over the next 5 years. So let's start there. If you want to move to page 22 of your packet, you can see the 5-year kind of capital outlay of the sewer works.
I have a quick question
Yes,
about language.
please do.
And I'm jumping ahead a little bit,
Yeah.
but the third paragraph down to third bullet point, stormwater utility is operating below minimum reserves.
Yes.
And then the two above that say
It's
currently under.
yes.
Is there, is that synonymous or?
No, those are different. So what that
Okay.
means is that for sewage and water, that they're actually, they have cash, but it's under the minimum that we're kind of required to have.
Okay.
Stormwater utility is actually underwater at the moment.
Okay.
Now, we do believe we can get it back above water at least for the year. But it is, I mean, just to be very candid, we've been, stormwater utility does not generate enough revenue to do the things with the stormwater utility we really need to do. From a maintenance standpoint, from an operational standpoint, things like that. So we try to fudge the numbers a little bit when it comes to water and stormwater to try to make it work, because the same guys work on both utilities. But ultimately, stormwater is becoming more and more expensive, obviously, because we have more stormwater pipes to maintain, more drains to maintain, and frankly, you'll see some of the upcoming projects with stormwater. So there is a difference between
Okay.
there, I'm sorry. I
Okay.
expounded a little more than I probably should have.
No, thank you.
So, okay, so on page 22 here, and I'll run through this, and if you guys have questions, I'm happy to answer those. Karen, will you grab me a pen really quick? Sure. Thank you. Okay, so miscellaneous sewer main repairs there, we kind of put some numbers in just as a guess, you never know. Some years could be 30,000, some years could be 5,000, we just don't know. So one of the bigger things you're gonna see throughout this whole plan is that we are considering a downtown revitalization project. So what that would mean is from Van Buren, on Van Buren, from Main to Line, and then north and south, one block on Chauncey. So up to Jackson and down to Market here. So consider it a big plus, okay? That area is in need of really of revitalization. The streets, the curbs, the sidewalks, all that kind of stuff. Now, that's not what the utilities are paying for, though. Utilities would be paying for the infrastructure underneath it. So you'll see in water, for instance, we have 100-year-old water pipes in downtown underneath Van Buren Street right now that we feel like it's probably time to replace those. We have sewer pipes underneath that is taking on sewer and stormwater right now, that the goal would be for us to separate those utilities, those utility lines. So we'd have all the downspouts of the downtown buildings that would go into a stormwater line that would end up going out to the river rather than going to our wastewater plant, which long-term would help our treatment capacity, and certainly take excess stormwater off of the utility there. So downtown revitalization, you'll see that in that main replacement. Again, I'm estimating 2027. I don't know if that's where it's gonna land, but we feel like it will be in the next 5 years. And we don't know if that 500,000 is a good number or not good number. We have a PER, a preliminary engineering report, that's being done by our consultants right now on the downtown area, that we'll get some preliminary estimates as to what those numbers are gonna look like. But as of right now, we kind of stuck a number in based on past precedent to kind of see where we're at. Let's see here. Replace the sewer back jet. You can see that that's a 2007 back jet. I know that number probably is a little shocking, that it's gonna cost $1 million, but I think that's probably right near the money where it needs to be. Our latest fire truck, which is not necessarily a one-for-one comparison, but it's kind of close, is at $1.2 million. So, welcome to municipal finance. It's lots of fun. It really, the price, I mean, to give you a perspective, the fire truck that we bought 10 years ago was $600,000. So it's doubled in price in the last 10 years. So we anticipate that back jet will probably be somewhere around that $1 million number. If it's less, great. If it's more, then we'll have to figure that out. So. Next up, SCADA radio improvements. Again, that's something where we've been kind of piecemealing that a little bit each year. In the previous study, which some of you may or may not have, some of you have, some of you don't, but in the previous study, let's see if I can find it really quick.
What?
Thank you.
We had that capitalized, I think, over a 4 or 5 year period, yes, yeah, so we've been, so since 2022, we've been spending about $167,000 a year to replace that SCADA system. SCADA basically is our way of monitoring the different lift stations around the city or even into the county. So that's the radio mechanism that kind of tells us, are there alarms going off? Have we hit capacity? All those kind of things. So in order to replace all of those, it was I think a 4 or 5 year project. So I think this year and next year was, look at that real quick. I think this year and next year will roll kind of into the same finish out year next year. That's why that 400,000 is there instead of 167 times 2. So. Total nitrogen removal. This is one of those that we feel like this is coming down the pipe from the state and feds. We already have started to our sewer plant has had to start monitoring the nitrogen removal, or the nitrogen that's in our wastewater. And the last time they did that was with phosphorus, and at our next permit, they made us take phosphorus out of the water, which cost us somewhere around $750,000. So we anticipate that $1 million number. Again, it's an estimate, but we anticipate that they'll be asking us for that. So, facility generator, obviously anything in order to run the majority of the sewer plant is a big ask. Is it necessary? Not necessarily, but if we have a multi-day outage, which doesn't happen, but just in case, that would run our plant for at least a couple of days. So. Next up is clean the sludge storage tank and mixing equipment repairs that happened this year, as well as the clean the digester and coating inside the walls. Those 2 projects are what added up to be the dye store replacement. You may remember, we talked about the dye store, you guys, not you, remember the replacement where the big bubble cover, if you will, at the wastewater plant. The old cover was 2 or 3 years past its life expectancy, so we stretched it. But we were starting to see some failure in it, so we replaced it. So we took the top off, we cleaned the digester, we lined the digester, and then we put a new dye store cover on top. That's basically that 1.2 give or take $1 million that you see there that was used this year, as well as the dye store cover replacement at $850,000 down below there. So you can get that. You can kind of get the total project number there together to see what that was. Sludge storage mixing and loadout facility. We are having more and more issues with our sludge storage or sludge mixing equipment. And so what Mike would like to do is to come on in. No, you're good. You're good. I think you're right there next to Amy. So, Glenn, this is Denise. If y'all not Denise, so this is Denise. So in your report in front of you is, we're on page 22. We're going through the sewer kind of project list, if you will. So sludge storage mixing and loadout facility, again, that's more of expand a little bit where our sludge storage is and create a true loadout facility so that instead of the way we do it right now, where kind of a truck pulls up and then we have a, I'm really gonna mess this up, but there's like a pump thing and it like pumps everything up and then it goes into the truck, and instead of doing that, we actually can create a much safer, more streamlined process that will help actually take care of the sludge that has kind of been building up over time. If you go to if you go past the wastewater plant, you see the big concrete tank out in front that kind of has the crack in it, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's great. Well, it's the exterior crack, it's fine. Anyways, the big concrete tank that's out front there, if you were to go up to the top of those stairs and look down, there are, now they've worked on it this year, so it's a little bit better, but there's like islands of dried sludge in there. And so by making some of these improvements, we won't have those islands where they have to actually get in there and like chisel away, and it's not a pretty job. So I'm thankful we have people that are willing to do that job, let's say it that way. So, the bridge crane and structure, that's a kind of I don't know if it's a 6 or 10 year annual maintenance scenario there, so. And then, of course, unexpected equipment repairs. And then a new lift station construction, that's kind of a maybe, could be, sort of kind of thing. I will tell you, most of the time when we have a new development, we work with the developer, whether it's housing development or commercial development, we work with the developer to try to actually have them build that on their dime as a part of the infrastructure cost. We have a couple of different potential developments that we're working on right now that are probably both gonna have to have a lift station, but I think we are gonna be able to figure out a way to cooperatively finance that in some way, shape, or form that wouldn't necessarily be out of this pot of money. So that's probably the best I can tell you on that right now. So that's kind of the sewage improvements that are planned over time. If you capitalize that over time, you can kind of see where they're at. There were a couple of things that, well, I'll tell you, this project list was a lot larger before I took my scissors to it and said, no, we're not doing that, we're not doing this. And not that Mike didn't need to do those things, but I couldn't justify the costs, so. So surprisingly, this actually has been cut significantly, and Leslie can attest to that. So that's the sewage side. Okay, any questions about any of those projects? I'm sure I did a terrible job explaining them, but I'll try my best. Okay, so let's go back then to page 1. And go to the water side. So the water utility is currently under its minimum level of cash reserves, but is estimated to climb above required reserve levels in 2027 and remain above required reserves through 2028. The proposed rates will help fund roughly $2.6 million of capital improvements in the next 5 years. So we will go back to, actually we're going to touch on a couple of things. Let's do first page 27.
I've got another
I'm
question.
sorry, yes.
When it's above the required reserves,
Yes.
is there a percentage that, okay, we're now 5% above the required reserves, so we don't have to continue increasing prices or
I see what you're
whatever?
saying. I think once you get, let's say it this way. Once you're able to get above reserves and you're able to sustain it, you don't have to be 50% above reserves or anything like that. I think Leslie, I don't know if you know that answer, but I guess my rule has always been, as long as we're above those reserves, like even if we're 2 or 3 or 5% above the reserves, we don't really need to, add more capital or add more money to it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think yeah.
So I don't know what that actual, what the actual percentage is, that's the preferred number, if you will. That certainly can be something I can ask from Baker Tilly if you'd like, of what that actual capital number is.
I
or what
guess
that
I'm just
reserve
wondering,
is number.
and
Yeah.
will that information, it seems like it would figure in at some point.
Sure.
When it comes down to what we decide, or what we recommend, rather.
So I'm gonna jump ahead for 2 seconds then, and just, if you look down at the electric utility, it's currently above the minimum reserve requirements and is estimated to remain above the reserve requirements. So the only thing you'll see in the electric over time is I think 1% per year, and that's just to try to keep up with cost of material increases.
Okay.
So basically, the point is that if we can get the utilities above that minimum reserve requirement, if you will, then it should be able to balance things out.
Okay.
The problem is, though, as you well know, because you've been on this board long enough to know, the problem is that every time we feel like we get there, we end up having some kind of major project we're mandated to do, right? I mean, before, when I came in, it was, all we had to do was we have to do the long-term control plan for the sewer. And once we get the long-term control plan done, we're gonna be good to go. And then they turned around and said, no, you also need to do some stormwater separation, and you need to take out all the phosphorus. And, now you have another issue with nitrogen that we're gonna have to do probably in the future. So it's always one of those where the feds trickle down to the state, and then the state trickles down to us, which is on the bottom.
Okay.
So I want to be optimistic and say we get above those minimum requirements, and then we're like, we just
Things
kind of
are
do the
good, yeah.
minor things along the way. But I can't promise that because they're just more and more mandates that keep trickling down to us.
Okay.
And again, in the last 5 years, the cost of materials have increased 20% in a lot of this, sometimes 120% sometimes. So, anyway,
Okay.
so that's a terrible answer to your question, but that's the best one I can give
No,
you.
no, that's fine.
So-
Okay. You answered it more or
Well,
less, thank you.
Hopefully. Let's see. So, no, 27 is not the page I want, although you can look at that, that's for sure. But what I'm looking for is the capital projects page. But before you go there, how about you just go up over one page to 28? You look at 28, and you look at 29, and you look specifically at page 30, you'll see why the minimum cash reserves are supposed to come up. And that is because our last bonds that we took out for the water utility is 2012 bonds, and those are projected to be paid off in 2027, which is 2 years from now. So we will have zero debt for the water utility by the end of 2027. Okay, so that's, I think, a really, really positive thing. Probably, Laura, you probably were the last one on here when we used to be we're gonna wait till the last minute and then we're gonna jump up rates. And usually when we jumped up rates, actually this was even before your time, we had to actually, because this board was recreated because we got out of the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission. And a reason for that was because every time we wanted to raise rates, we'd have to go to the IURC. You probably have been through those. Go through the IURC, and we would have to come up with a project list that said, here's the millions of dollars we want to go spend so that we can get a rate increase. And so we would go and bond for those millions of dollars, and that's what these bonds are left up. So my very first welcome to the office gift from Jim Fleck was a 2012 water bond, as you can see on there. So, but in any case, so I'm really, really happy to say we're getting out of debt when it comes to the water utility. Debt is not necessarily a bad thing when it comes to utilities, but I think bonding for the sake of getting a rate increase is probably not a good strategy, especially since we have you all to kind of be our citizen voice, if you will. So that's 30. I think that's the real positive in the water side for sure, is that there is light at the end of the tunnel on that. On 31, you can kind of see where we're at now. So as you probably have heard, we had some well issues this year. If you were on Facebook, you've definitely heard that we've had some water well issues this year. And then we went from the well itself. We had a break in well, I think it was well 9, because we had to rebuild it. So I'm pretty sure that's what that number is. So we had a break in the well, and basically what happened was it started sucking up kind of the sand and debris from the bottom. Now those materials didn't go into the faucets of our residents because it goes to the plant after it gets sucked out of the well. The problem is that created the lack of pressure. So the pressure would go up and then it'd drop and it'd go up and it'd drop, and what that creates is that water hammer in the actual pipes. So inside the pipes you have material and minerals that have built up over time. Well, when you have water hammer happening, then the pipes, those materials, those minerals break off of the inside of those pipes, and that's why you get brown water.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, when we flush hydrants around the city, that's why you see orange water sometimes happen when we do that, because again, we're flushing the hydrants to try to get rid of some of those minerals, but some other minerals break free and when people are using the water during that time. So I just say all that to say, we did get the well fixed, which is a positive thing. We also had a drought during that same time, which created additional issues, and so our water utility's been through a little bit of a ringer this year. But I will tell you one little anecdotal story, and then I'll move on. But we were, let's say, called out on social media about our water, and our water guys went to the house. I'm not saying this is for everybody, okay? I'm just saying this one story. But our water guys went to the house and opened up the well pit and took a glass of water out of it, and it was crystal clear.
Oh, wow.
So it means that it was something between our infrastructure and their faucet inside the house. So I just say that, I've said this in public meetings, and I'm gonna say it in public meeting again, which is just because someone posts a picture on social media doesn't necessarily mean that that's what happened. Sometimes it is our problem, and we will go out and fix it. But we have really, really tried to push people to say, call our utility department if you have questions, or if you get water that you don't like the look of it or the taste of it, call our guys. That's what we're here for, literally, that's what we're here for. So if you happen to hear about that, again, that's not the case for everybody, but there's been a couple of those instances where maybe what has been shown has not necessarily been the case.
Well, so is it fixed? Because we had problems.
Yes,
Our neighbors
yes.
had problems.
Mhm.
Like it's
Yes.
still kind of an issue. And
Still
so
kind,
I'm
okay.
wondering.
So
if
that's
it's-
helpful information. So the well
Yeah.
itself is fixed. The
Okay.
well itself is fixed, yes. Now, I will say that they are going to, one other thing that they're gonna do is the aeration tank, is they're gonna look at the filter in the aeration tank. And, because Mike doesn't know the last time that actually was replaced, so we're gonna actually look at that and see what that looks like. Basically, the well is pumped up, or the water is pumped up out of the well, and then it kind of goes into, it gets dropped from above into an aeration tank, and it adds air to it. Well, that filter that it goes through hasn't been replaced in a while. We don't really know last time it was, but then again, Mike's been here for 10 years now, something like that. So we're gonna look at that as maybe another cause of some sort. I'm not sure, but I'm gonna tell you the same thing, Amy, as I've told other people, is like, if you are having those brown water issues, please have our guys come out and take a look at it, because we don't know, we can't fix what we don't know, so. And is it like your whole neighborhood, or is it is your whole neighborhood, okay?
It was real bad.
It was-
And
yeah.
then we're like, is this us?
Yeah.
And so my husband walked across the street.
Yeah.
We're like, no, it's us too. It's been like
Gotcha.
this for months.
Okay,
And we called the next day.
Yeah.
They flushed the hydrants right away.
Yeah.
And then it's been better, but it is still discolored.
still a little
So-
discolored, okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay, let's
It's
talk
okay.
more,
Okay.
about it, but only because, like later, but I do wanna find out when you say discolored, what that means.
Mhm.
So, I know the other thing that people complain about our water is that sometimes they can smell chlorine in it. Which, Mike will tell you straight up that if you smell chlorine, that means he hasn't put enough in. And so,
That's how a pool
so,
is.
yeah, exactly, that's how a
Yeah.
pool is, right? And so sometimes it's just a matter of adjusting how much chlorine gas we're pumping into to clarify it and all that kind of good stuff. So, thanks for that, seriously, because, again, sometimes it's anecdotal evidence, sometimes it's
Yeah.
people that like to just complain all the time, and sometimes it's real, like, this is a real issue that is
Yeah.
not just a pretend, and so I appreciate that very much. So we do think we're gonna have to replace well 10, or at least rebuild it in some way, shape, or form. The downtown project, so Denise, what I was talking about is that we're looking at maybe in 2027 of doing a downtown revitalization project from Line to Main on Van Buren, and then one block north and south on Chauncey, so a big plus.
Nice, yes.
And so that will be streets and curbs and sidewalks and lamp posts and all that kind of stuff, but also the infrastructure underneath it. So we have 100-year-old water lines underneath Van Buren. I know our sewer lines are probably 50 or 60 years old at least under there. And then we have zero stormwater infrastructure. So the goal is to put stormwater lines in and connect all the building downspouts into that. That'll be less stormwater going to the plant, less treatment, less chemicals, all that kind of stuff. So that's, again, just shot in the dark. Here's a number that we think it may or may not be, and we have no clue, but hopefully the PER will give us a better number as to what that infrastructure replacement cost is gonna be. So that's for 27. Service pumps, again, there's 2 years worth of just replacement of service pumps inside the actual plant itself. Lead service line replacement, that is the biggest question mark that we have. So the federal government, I think we talked about it last year for some, you guys that were here last year, but the service line, so lead, there was a lead and copper rule that was passed by the federal government that the state of Indiana has finally started to kind of do something with. And So we've had to, over the last 2.5 years now, I think, we've had to identify all of the lead service lines and lead lines in general in the city. So when we have a water main break, if we find that it's a lead line, we immediately replace it, okay? The problem comes in is that sometimes we don't know where the service lines, meaning the lines from the main to the meter, which is our infrastructure still, okay? Sometimes we don't know whether that's lead or not. So we've had to go through, we hired a company, 120 Water, who has been doing this across the state for other communities as well. They've come in and kind of do an evaluation. They do some soil borings, if you will, or do some borings down to kind of figure out what the lines are. We actually, we have the GLOW team, which is get the lead out. It's actually through US EPA. They came in and they actually are doing some door-to-door at some different locations where we're unsure whether it's a lead line or non-lead line. They can actually go into the basements of most of these houses if they allow them in, and they can actually look at what line's coming in, and it could be copper, it could be steel, it could be iron, or it could be lead. And so if it's lead, we know that it's probably lead all the way to the meter. So that's where the gray area comes in, because we are being mandated by the federal and state government to replace all the lead lines in the city. The challenge comes in is we don't know what to do with the private lines that go between the meter and the house, because that's not our land, it's not our property. We have no right to be on there, we have no right to replace that. We don't know how the feds or state is gonna mandate us do it, whether it's gonna be we give a letter to John Q, homeowner, and say, hey, guess what? Federal government's making us do this, here's your bill, or you can get it done and get us, or if it's gonna be something where they say, city, you're gonna have to go in and do it no matter what. Then what happens if the people say, get on my property?
That'd be kind of stupid.
So,
Yeah.
well, it would be stupid, but I'm just saying, there are those people that live in our community, and so we don't know how to handle that going into the future. Because it's not been clarified in the courts, it's not been clarified to us by US EPA, or by INDOT, or IDEM, excuse me, or anybody like that. So I really don't know how that's gonna land. But that's why we put $100,000 each year into that. It could be more, it could probably a little bit more. But we put a number in there, because basically right now we just have to tell IDEM, okay, we have identified our lead lines, and we are coming up with a plan of action, which is true. We are doing those two things. That was
Okay,
a lot
so
of information.
currently
Sorry. Go ahead.
identifying, you currently are identifying the lead lines from the main to the meter.
Well,
You're-
we're identifying all the lead lines. So the actual water mains and the service lines.
Okay,
Yes.
and your
But
biggest concern is what happens from
The
meter
home,
to
the meter to
house,
the home.
and
Yes,
what-
that's correct.
What the city's
Yes.
requirement is gonna be.
Yes, exactly.
That's what you don't know.
Exactly. That is exactly what we don't know. Yes.
Okay, good.
Yes. Because if that's a replacement, I mean, you're talking about getting into people's homes. That is not something that we are experts at. So, that is a big ominous gray storm cloud on the horizon,
You can
so.
see some real problems there.
Yes,
To where,
yes,
if they mandate you that you have to replace it,
Yeah.
people won't allow you,
yes,
you're gonna shut the water off
Yeah,
until they
or
allow you.
something.
And then that's just
Exactly.
gonna be a,
absolutely, absolutely. And then it becomes a, is this house habitable situation too?
Exactly.
I mean, it's,
It just
it
keeps
it is unraveling a, I don't know, the biggest ball of yarn, right? It's just one piece after another, so. Okay, yeah, new water mains, if needed, obviously through there, meter replacement allowance, and then any kind of unforeseen contingencies, so. You can see that, the 422,000, do you know what that is, Leslie, off the top of your head there, under the unforeseen contingency under 2025? Do you remember what that is offhand? I'm guessing, I bet you some of that has to do with some of the work that's been done on cleaning up, getting the water clarified and stuff, but I'm not sure, so.
Well, I know that we've had several different water main breaks. that
Yeah. Consequential size, yeah.
Big.
Yeah,
And we've already started with some lead line replacements.
Yeah, that's true.
So-
That's probably just bulked up into that number,
Mhm.
so. Okay, any questions about that? Yes, Leslie?
Back to Laura's initial question,
Yeah.
page 26, will help kind of guide us, or guide through that,
26 will?
yeah. Show you kind of where, we're at. Yeah, shows the variance of,
Oh, gotcha, where we're at from a
Yeah.
financial perspective.
yep. And where,
What the minimum cash balance or minimum balance is that what you're
Mhm.
saying?
Yeah.
Thank you for finding that, I had forgotten that
Yeah.
was in there. So that kind of gives you the breakdown,
Okay.
a little bit of, looks like it's a factor of 2 months.
I'm not even oriented to
No,
this
that's okay.
page.
That's okay. So page 26, if you go under the, kind of the, under the operating fund, see where it says operating fund there?
Okay,
Okay?
the top?
And, yep, so if you go down to the first line, well, the first subset line there, where it says estimated operation and maintenance expense from page, so 27, so that's about a $2 million operation, if you will. And then that factors for 2 months, there's your minimum balance.
Am I looking on 27 as well, did you say?
No,
Just 26.
no, you're okay, you're fine, you're fine. So,
Oh,
your estimated
oh.
operation there, and then, so basically it looks like 2 months' worth is your minimum,
Okay,
is your minimum balance. Is that what
Okay.
you read, Leslie? Okay.
yep.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other questions on water? Hopefully the next two will be easier and faster. Stormwater utility is operating below minimum reserves as of August 31st. Proposed rate increases will allow the utility to pay its portion of a sewer debt, cover operating expenses, fund capital needs, and meet required reserves by 2028. So, let's see if we can find that usually.
Page 4 starts the minimum required amount.
Oh, yeah, okay, so it was at the very beginning. Wish they would have categorized that the
Yeah.
same way that's in the packet, but whatever, so. It's a learning moment for Baker Tilly, I guess, so. Anyways, so there you go, you can kind of see where we're at, which is not in great shape for stormwater. But again, stormwater is one of those utilities that is really hard for people because they have no control over it. It's a flat rate, they can't control, with water and sewer, they can control to a certain extent how much water they use, which then impacts how much water and sewer they pay for. Stormwater, you can't, it's a flat fee. Every resident gets billed the exact same amount. Every business or commercial and or industrial property gets billed based on their square footage, and there's a escalating scale of that number based on how many square foot of impervious surface, which means roofing, which means concrete or asphalt, those are all impervious surface. Grass, dirt, gravel, if it's loose gravel, those are all impervious, or are pervious surfaces, the water can trickle through. But the rest of those are all impervious surface. So based on your square footage of impervious surface, that's how businesses and industry gets billed. Residents get paid, or get billed a flat fee, because they basically took what was the square footage of impervious surface of every residence in Columbia City, and then they just found an average, and that's how they billed it. So, to be fair, that was in 2008 or 9. My gut tells me the impervious surface of residences probably has increased since that time, but so has the stormwater rate, so. So on page 6 is the capital projects that are anticipated for stormwater. Stormwater drain rehabilitation, again, that's going through and fixing drains, stormwater drains. Of course, the downtown project, $250,000, that's a rough estimate. So basically, the plan for stormwater, as I sort of mentioned, but I'll get a little more detail. Right now, we have a stormwater trunk line that ends currently at Ellsworth Street, 1 block south, basically 1 block south of City Hall. That trunk line will be brought all the way up Chauncey Street to the post office and then have a branch off down Van Buren Street. And we fully believe that that trunk line will be able to take all the stormwater from that 2-block, 4-block really area. That makes sense to everybody? So that's based on the cost of the other piping that we've done up to this point. That's how that $250,000 came to be. Maybe more, maybe less. That's a rough estimate, but that's the number we put in there. Westgate Project Phase 3. So, 2 days ago, I would have said our plan is to build Westgate Phase 3 this coming year. We've done 2 phases of Westgate with curb, sidewalk, street, and stormwater infrastructure, things like that. Some expanded water infrastructure. And we have mainly done that through Community Crossings Matching Grant Program through NDOT. We were notified yesterday that we were not funded for Community Crossings.
That's
You
good.
guys too, yes.
Oh.
They had over $247 million of requests and had $100 million to give away. So that was a kind of a gut shot because it potentially messes up our plan going into the future for infrastructure cost. That's $1 million that we're not getting anymore, at least this coming year. So that's a big shot. So I don't know what we're gonna do right now with Westgate. We are going to finish Westgate, by the way, if anybody's watching in public, surprise. I'm gonna let you know here in the near future once we get a game plan. But I'll just say that it's a question mark because we have to finish Westgate. We 2/3 of it is done. We need to finish it at some point in the near future, but that's definitely thrown a big kink into the plan. So we'll see where that goes. I don't know that the 100,000 will go in 2026, but we may be able to do a portion of it. I just don't know at this point. Infrastructure improvements, again, I think that's more of just, you can see the 100,000 that we spent this year. I'm trying to think, Leslie, do you remember which one that is? I'm gonna put you on the spot. The 100,000, and I know that we put in some stormwater line. I just don't, because this one down here we put in, I think, last year. I think it was last winter. So I apologize. I should know that number offhand, but I don't right now. But then the unforeseen contingencies going into the future, again, just kind of 50,000 in here or there, which honestly probably is low. But again, we are trying to keep dollars down for the cost. So, okay, questions on stormwater? We're on the home stretch, friends. Electric. So the electric utility is currently above minimum reserve requirements and is estimated to remain above reserve or required levels through 2028. It is estimated that the utility will be above recommended reserves between 2026 through 2028 as a result of the proposed rate plan. So, generally speaking, in electric, that is at the back. If you go to page 37, you'll be able to see the capital expenditures, excuse me, that's expected. Truck 411 that is a smaller bucket truck, I believe. And then if you look down at truck 407, that we actually had just, the last Board of Works meeting approved the moving forward with their quote. And I don't remember.
And it was said to be 110 for the chassis and like 350 for the.
Yeah, so we're gonna be right in that number, yeah.
Yeah.
That's for our big truck, that's the big bucket truck. Also has a, Doug, you know this better than I do, a boom, something about a smaller boom that can go out. I don't know.
Okay. So it's not a digger derrick, it's
It's not a digger derrick, it's a big bucket, yeah, it's a big bucket, so. Actually, I think our digger derrick's actually in pretty decent shape, so, cause I don't think he has that in yeah, he doesn't have that in the plan at the moment, so. Trying to remember what OCR project is. I'm sorry, guys, I should know what that is, but I don't remember what OCR stands for. I'm gonna remember it in about an hour. I'll remember it in about an hour, but,
You can text us.
yeah, I'll text you guys, yeah. Pole replacements in there, 225, again, we've done pole replacement this year. We're doing the other half of the pole replacement, I think, next year. I don't exactly know why it's not, you know what, I think reason why it's not in 2025, why this year's pole replacement in 2025 is, I think it ended up being billed in 2024. So that's why I don't think you see it in 2025, because we've been doing it all year. And then the second round of pole replacement is scheduled in 2026 in that $225,000 range. Yes,
That was the pole replacement. Is that replacing the rest of the old poles, or just, are you,
the ones that failed.
the one that failed?
Yes.
That you've had to check?
Yes, yeah, we had a company come in and they checked all of our poles
Osmos.
and then Osmos, yep, that's exactly right. So that's the ones that, they're gonna do that second round of replacement next year. Yeah, so let me jump down here to fuel pump. So we have partnered very kindly with our friends at the county. By the way, Denise works for the county, I don't know if you knew that, so, in the highway department. And she's been a great partner in regards to this. But our fuel pumps at the municipal services facility, which the electric department owns, they are an underground storage tank, which means the state of Indiana has gotten a lot more aggressive at making sure that there's underground storage tanks that aren't leaking, and they really want everything above ground because it's better for the environment, it's easier to be checked, all that kind of stuff. So the whole, all of the highway departments gas tanks are all above ground. So the big, massive building you see over there is, I think houses a lot of those, I think,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
So anyways, long story short is that we have partnered with the county for the majority of our vehicles to go and actually get fueled up at the county facility. And that's actually ended up saving us money because our fuel pumps at the MSF, at the Municipal Services Facility, our tank was not big enough, so we'd always have to have what they call a squirter truck, which is a fun name, by the way. What?
Which costs more.
Which costs a lot more because you're talking about half a tanker instead of a full tanker, or whatever the case is. So we end up getting a much better price for the fuel. The problem is that we still have that tank that we're gonna have to get up out of the ground. And so that's what that $75,000 is set aside for right now, is to bring that fuel tank up out of the ground, again, because it's owned by the electric utility, and get it up out of the ground. And then I think they wanna maybe do some kind of a small thing on top of the ground, like not something that all of our cars can come through, but just where they can, in an emergency
For
pinch,
emergency,
they can fill up, little gas tanks, or even a car or two if they need to. But so I think that's a part of that. So undergrounding, that what's that? I'm losing my lines here. Let me try to do this real quick. Okay, I'm sorry. Fuel pumps were 25,000. Undergrounding was 75. I apologize. So and I can tell you the fuel pumps, that 25 is going to end up being more, because I'm pretty confident that it's more than that. So I don't know why he put 25, but that's what he did. So the undergrounding is 75,000 there, and again, that's just to move lines underground. I know that they were working out on the Spear Road area. I don't remember where you live. You're not out there, are you?
No,
I didn't think so.
400.
So what?
400.
400, okay. So I know they were working out in the Spear Road area because 2 years ago we got that big derecho that came through, the big
Yeah.
windstorm. So 2 years ago, that was a miserable area to be at because all the trees and everything. I mean, I think our guys worked out there for like 3 straight days at least. And so we're trying to move a lot of those lines underground out of Spear Road and out in our non-city territory area out there.
That's the farthest point, right?
It's basically the farthest point, yeah. Out at the lakes, that's, that kind of big lake and there's a little bit, I think, a trailer, there's like a lake
under.
area that's at the edge of our territory, if you will, so. State Road 9 rebuild, we are partnering with REMC on that project. There's a segment where they are actually, I think, taking their lines underground in that area, or they're replacing poles, it's one of the two. But we're also working side by side with REMC to kind of redo our lines out there as well, so. 69 kV poles and 2 phases there. And that's, I believe, replacements, and then meters, and then future truck purchase is out there in 2029 with some unforeseeable capital expenses out there, who knows, but, the actual overall 69 kV project, that was something we also worked with REMC and with AEP on, and it was a massive undertaking, so you would remember it, and maybe the two of you may remember it, but, that was a multi-million-dollar project to upgrade our lines and all that kind of stuff, so. Do you need power?
Yeah, I'll just.
Oh, I was gonna say, I don't know that there's any underneath here, so you may have to go to the wall outlet. Any question about electric? Yes?
The OCR project, is that the overhead reclosures by chance, replacing them or anything? I'm just wondering, because a lot of times that has.
Is that what has, okay, it's
But,
possible,
so-
it's possible, let me, I'm gonna, I'll shoot.
It's all right, I just happened to think of it.
No, that's
thinking that
okay.
That's what it was, so.
Uh, Okay, any other questions about electric? Okay, so we'll get back to page 1 and 2 then, actually we'll put 2. So again, our goal was to try to keep the increases at $10 or around $10 for the next 3 years, which is $10 per month. Now, again, a lot of the comments and concerns we have from residents, and I'm not saying that they aren't out of line. They aren't out of line. But when they get our utility bill, obviously they're paying $200-300 on our utility bill. And they compare that to other communities that have maybe a $150 or $200 utility bill. A lot of those other communities don't have their own electric, so they're paying a different electric bill compared to their utility bill, right? I can promise you, when it comes to electric, we tend to be just slightly lower than REMC. Actually, the commercial and industrial ends up paying more than what REMC does, so they kind of in some ways subsidize our residential rate a little bit on the electric side. On the water, there are multiple communities around us that have a private water utility, and they're paying more than we are for water. Our biggest issue is sewer and stormwater. That's our biggest issue. And like I've mentioned, that's probably the biggest issue when it comes to where the increases are coming at, because we have things that fall down the hill to us.
So are you
So.
proportioning that out, or it's $10 per month for all 3 utilities?
That's for everything.
For everything?
Yes.
Combined, and how are you breaking the percentages out per utility out of that $10?
So.
Allocation for each
I don't,
utility?
good question. So what they did was they took, I think I'm gonna answer your question, but if I didn't, tell me that I didn't answer your question, okay? So overall, all the utilities together are 3.51% increase per year. Or per, I guess, per bill. Well, so it's
Yeah.
on the,
Oh,
yeah.
I
so-
see.
So
Okay.
3.51 average annual increase, okay?
Okay.
So what they're showing you there is the percentage of change across the whole utility bill in general,
Okay.
right? Because most of the time, people just want to know how much more they're going to pay
Yeah.
each month, right?
Right,
Now, if you break that down though, and you go into each of those utilities, you can see, sewer, so for the first year, from current to 2026, we're looking at a, $3 and change increase there. The next year is about a little less than a $5 increase, and the following year is another, give or take, a little under $6 increase for sewer. Yeah, I'm on page 2.
Okay.
I'm going down the chart there, yeah, okay? So then if you look at stormwater, you can see, again, $3.50, $2.50, and then it stays the same. So what they tried to do was they took the increases for each of the utilities and tried to break them down so that we'd add no more than $10 increase on the average bill per month, if that makes sense. Does that make sense to everybody? Because that's a little, I know it's confusing. You look at water, again, you're looking at, $2, then $2.50, and then another $2.50 basically. Electric, you're at 1% every year. So that's how they tried to kind of finagle the numbers a little bit so that we kept, so it wasn't the first year we're gonna get a 15 and the next year we get an 8 and then the next year, you see what I'm saying? So, any questions on that before we go to the next page? Okay. Next page is gonna look scary. So average monthly residential total utility bill. So you can see where we're at, which is at the higher end. I will tell you that I know Bluffton is going through an increase right now. I know Angola is going through an increase, or they're at least having a proposed increase right now. Also, the other kind of interesting thing I want to point out is even if you look at our 2026 bill, if you look at the water, for instance, you see it's 3654, 3657, I'm sorry, 3657. So compare that to Wabash, who has Indiana American Water, and what their water rate is, which is $50. So that's why I'm saying is like, it's really, really hard to compare one-to-one. Because, Wabash, for instance, and Warsaw, by the way, which is not on this list, but Wabash and Warsaw both have Indiana American Water. And so they're gonna be at that $50-ish range. I don't know what Warsaw's is, because I don't have that, but the point is they're an investor, they'd be an investor-owned utility. So basically a private market utility, if you will. And so you can see the difference in water, which I've kind of, not threatened this, but I've joked a little bit with Leslie, is like, maybe we just end up sending out 4 different bills each month. So then they're happy about their water bill and happy about their stormwater bill, but then they're mad about their sewer bill, mad about their electric, right?
But then what upcharges there just for the all?
Yeah, exactly. But, but that's the thing is, so you have some communities like ours that had a $10 million long-term control plan, and other communities that had $1 million and have similar size. You have some communities that have a private utility for water, but, and others that have a public utility, right? So it doesn't fix the issue. I mean, I'm glad that we're still below our 2 other communities in Whitley County, although not by much with South Whitley, but South Whitley also has a lot of things on the horizon I think that they're gonna have to do, so.
They don't have stormwater in theirs either.
They also don't have stormwater, that's a really good point. Doug, I got an answer from Sean. So, he said it is for a set of breakers at 500 North and State Road 9 to prevent outages clear out to Etna from affecting every customer all the way back to town. Also, that'll help sectionalize during outage events and improve data collection capabilities for a rural area. Is that what you said? Okay, very good, okay. I knew he could speak your language. So then if you look down at the electric side, again, I think it's one of those where, here's the, and again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'll tell you pretty honestly, a couple of these communities on here are, like Bluffton and Mishawaka, for instance, are communities that have signed an agreement with a Michigan power company that has a pretty good escalator coming in the near future over the couple years. We at IMPA, we're an Indiana Municipal Power Agency community, and we've seen pretty stable increases, decreases, if you will, over the years. So thankfully, we have a pretty diverse set of generation facilities. We have some in the coal, we have some in, we have our own solar park out here that's owned by Indiana Municipal Power Agency. We do have some nuclear. We do have, we have actually, I think we have maybe even a little bit of hydro, but still, we have a pretty diverse portfolio, generally speaking. And, so, and again, really, the only reason that we're doing anything with electric is just to try to keep up with inflationary increases for our materials. So, we don't want to get below the reserves, that's the main point, so. Okay? So, I know I've thrown all kinds of information at you. And, I guess what I'm asking, requesting, wanting from you guys is feedback on the idea and the plan. Again, I know I've said this, again, Laura's heard me say this a bajillion times now, but no one likes utility increases. That is the role of the city, that's the role of our council to make those decisions, of me and of Leslie to kind of administer those decisions, if you will. But the biggest impact right now that we're facing from a even non-utility standpoint is Senate Rolled Act 1, which is a huge property tax bill that was passed by the legislature that actually has probably more impacts, the more we get into it, more impacts on the income tax side than it does the property tax side for us. And because of that, I'm not proposing any wage increases this next year. It's the first time in, well, it's the second time in 14 years that it's only been 2 times. This will be the second time, I guess, in 15 years that I have not had a proposed wage increase for our staff. But I think we had to cut, was it $200,000 or $300,000 from our budget this year?
It was close to 400.
Close to 400,000. We have asked for a excess levy appeal because we are a growing community. We do have that ability, but that's not a given. So we, right now, we're $400,000 less next year than what we were this year. And what, 50-cent increase ends up being about $100,000 for our staff.
Yep.
So, you start doing the math, and it's just, the biggest issue, and again, I won't belabor the point here, but the biggest issue is, I think there's individuals that will see our park projects and say, oh, well, the city must have money. But the problem is that's a completely different pot of money. I can't take from the food and beverage tax money to give wages, because that's not what it was set up for, right? I can't take from the utilities to pay a policeman's wage. I can't take, this to go to that. Like, there's certain things I can't do. I just don't have that ability. And so, even though some of these utilities, electric being one of those, is, in a decent shape financially, I don't feel right giving them an increase when my police and firefighters aren't getting an increase, or my street department isn't, and, so it's been a really, really difficult budget year. Really difficult budget year. So we have a lot of things that are kind of hitting all at the same time, which really sucks, just to be honest with you. But with this, again, this is a scenario where our municipal advisor is coming in and saying, hey, we need to make some adjustments, and again, like I said, we've had, 15, 20% increases at least in some of our materials, and yet we're talking about a 3% per year increase, right? So.
I think you speak to the electric department,
Yeah.
and we're in a good situation, but if you listen to Sean and Doug, I'm sure that you probably know as well, electrical costs for anything is triple, if not more. So if it continues to go at that rate, we have to
Yeah.
Well,
be able to.
all it takes is, I've told you before,
Yeah.
a year of ice storms.
Yes.
That just wipes out a complete system, and
Yeah.
my goodness.
Yep.
It's just.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
if we have to go buy a new substation, or if we would have to go build a new substation, you're talking multiple millions of dollars to do that, right? Now, thankfully, we shouldn't have to do that, but catastrophe
Yeah.
or catastrophic event of some sort, we're in problems. So, again, it's always that balance of we're trying to be responsible with the dollars, we're trying to think ahead, and at the same time, we're not trying to gouge our residents. So it's like this really big balancing act all the time. And nobody likes to see increases. I don't like to see more of my money going out, every month either. But, you know, again, looking ahead, I think, hopefully you've seen in these projects, we're not looking at anything like, hey, we're gonna go build a new theme park for somebody or something like that. Like, we're trying to be thoughtful, and, so.
And I will speak highly of our department heads and the employees. They really try to be conscious of
Yeah.
trying to do things themselves instead of having somebody else come in and do those. They work together so well of, okay, so we need this help, can you come in and help us to do this? And you can hear all of them say, well, we completed this project on our own and we were able to save this. So they really are conscious of that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, to that point, I mean, and all of our departments do it, but, man, sewer especially, or wastewater specifically, I mean, they are always MacGyvering things together and trying to, instead of calling in a private company every time we need it, yeah, I mean, all of our departments do that, but, it's, again, it sucks, but it's, yeah, comes with the territory, I guess, so. anyways. What questions do you have?
The $10 rate increase
Yeah.
per month,
Yeah.
when would that start being implemented? Like the last ones we did, would it be like in April or the beginning of the year? When can residents
Yeah.
expect to see the $10 showing up?
So depending obviously on what you all do tonight, and depending on how quickly the council can move and we can get into the rate structure, we're thinking it potentially could hit on the first bills of February. Or I should say the bills of February.
Instead of March.
But it could be March, it just kind of depends on how fast we go through the process
Right.
and, you know.
Okay.
Because we still have, you know, public hearing to do, and we still have multiple readings of the ordinance to do and all that kind of stuff, plus holidays and such things, so. Other questions you have?
Have you ever had a meeting where we're like, hey, we're gonna lower rates? Has that happened?
We have, I mean, so we did lower trash rates one time. And that was one of those like, well, we're gonna do it, and we know that probably in the future we'll have to re-raise it, but it's something, right? And I think that actually ended up being at the same time we did, some other increase, so it was like, it was almost a
It equaled
counterbalance. It was an
itself.
equal out is what it was, but, I mean, you know, here's the deal, is like I said earlier, Amy, I agree with you. I would love to come in and say, guess what? We don't need to do increases for the next 3 years. Isn't that wonderful? My hope is if we can get water to a place where if we can get water out of the bonding market, which we're almost there, and we can, kind of do status quo and just make sure that everything's taken care of, I mean, that would be the best case scenario. That's one less thing we have to raise, great. With sewer, I just don't know that's ever gonna happen, just purely because every time we turn around, we're getting something else handed down to us that we have to do,
It's
And
not our choice.
it's not our
It's
choice,
mandate,
yeah. And with electric, here's the other thing with electric is that, and you probably have heard it, there's a lot of conversation happening right now in the electric realm because of the data centers that are being discussed. And thankfully, I guess thankfully in some ways, maybe not in others, but, we've not had that issue come to us. But data centers are tremendous power suckers. They have a tremendously large load. And that means that all the infrastructure getting to that data center has to be upgraded. And, even the governor is coming out kind of against the data centers and saying the amount of money, especially for those private companies, those private utility providers, the additional money that they're gonna have to put out of their pocket to support these data centers for the infrastructure upgrades may not be worth it, because the data centers typically don't hire a whole lot of people. There's not a lot of income tax from it. There's utility generation, obviously, but. So, I'd love to come to you and say no increases. I'd love to. I just don't know how we do that. I mean,
Especially with you're losing as much funding as you're already losing.
I mean, that's the other kicker. Like, it's like, they take it out of one pocket, and they get their gold star for cutting taxes, and then we're stuck with, okay, well, how do we keep funding police and fire and streets and parks and all the other things that we provide to our residents that, you know, a lot of people want, obviously. They want to have a dispatcher answer that phone, right? Things like that. So it's just, this year has been really, it's been a tough year, to be honest with you, just because of that, because we've had a lot of components come together at one time that's been really negative. So we hope that in the legislature this year, we can get some adjustments made that will make it easier and better for us. We are not gonna we're not gonna try to change the property tax thing. It's not worth the fight, but we are hoping to do the tweaks to the income tax piece. But we may have to end up passing our own income tax, which the county already provides us revenue that we all pay. So we all pay income taxes to the state. The state then gives a certain amount to the county, and then we get a certain amount of that
Yeah.
because of our population. But now there's, in the current bill, we'd have to pass our own to get any income tax dollars. We'd actually end up losing money from what we're currently getting. Wow. So, now, we have some fixes. The cities and towns, we're proposing some fixes, so hopefully that's gonna be okay going down the pipe, but it's, I don't know, I'll be very
Are you
candid.
scratching your head like, oh.
People got hosed in this property tax bill. People got hosed. They don't realize it yet, but that property tax deduction that they got is just gonna be made up somewhere else. It is what it is, but, so, I'll quit being negative, I'm sorry.
But as far as the
Yes.
utility
Yeah.
rate is only concerning the bills, I'm devil's advocate
Sure,
here
please do.
for the public.
Yes.
So that $10
Mhm.
is just for utilities. They just need to be perfectly clear and know that Park's not getting the
Right.
money out of it for a dog park.
Right.
Nothing's coming out of it except the utilities.
Yes.
It's exactly for
Yes,
electric, water, stormwater.
absolutely.
It's
And
not
sewer can't go to
funding-
electric, and water can't go to storm, well, water
And
can
it's-
sort of,
yeah.
but that's a different.
It's
so, yeah.
not funding any
Right.
extracurricular
Right.
anything.
Exactly.
Or
100%.
people's raises
Yes.
or anything to be,
Yes. Well, I mean, if those
But that's
employees,
it.
but yes, I mean, but at the end of the day, again,
it's,
you
It
know, I think
stays
it
with
stays with the
yes.
utilities, right?
Right.
If someone gives $1, you know, for their electric bill, if you're giving it, I mean, Doug doesn't pay water, stormwater, or sewer. He's an outside electric customer, which is one of the 5 members. So every dollar he gives goes to the electric department,
right.
goes to the electric department, so.
And I will say, our electric department is pretty phenomenal.
Yeah.
Like when we have a power outage, it's usually within minutes,
Yes,
I mean, since I've been here, it's not been longer than an hour that folks have been out. So, you know, it's just we pay for the value
Yeah.
of what we're getting, so.
yeah,
I agree with that. I mean, it's like I feel like it's every discussion we've had since I've been part of
Yeah.
this board. There are increases, and it feels like if we don't do this, I want clean water.
yeah.
I want I want to keep that phenomenal response time.
Yeah.
I think we all want that, and I feel like if we don't do this, I think we're in trouble. It's like
Yeah.
every single time we talk about this, it's like, it's very hard. I know we don't want to do this. This feels like a big amount.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I think it will be for some people. I think
Sure.
when we've done this before, it was maybe a
Yeah.
lesser amount per month, and
Yes.
we were still very concerned about that. So I
Yeah.
am concerned about that,
Mm.
but we want these things. We have to have these things.
I know I'm new, I'm on the flip side, like I think $10 a month, that is a lot for some people, but I worked at the school for 22 years. I mean, you have kids coming in with Starbucks every single day.
Yeah.
You know, and not to be, but I mean, $10 for us to have
I agree.
what we have and to continue to, I just think, I mean, I feel bad too. Like, I wish, it just seems like there's nothing that's going
Mm-mm.
down.
There's
And
not.
to me,
There's not.
$10 to keep things how they are and to be able to maintain is, you know, I don't want to spend more money either, but I just think that, you know, we all just have to,
And I agree, $10 to me, it is a lot, but
Yeah.
I also look at it from the other side, because I was an energy advisor. People that really want to cut back, there are ways they
they
can cut
can,
back.
yeah.
$10 a month on electric, I can do that in water heating.
Yeah.
You know, if you have electric water.
Yep.
Additional takes long showers. So those kind of people, there are ways to cut back. Now, you don't want to see that too
Yeah.
much because it doesn't help you, but I'm just saying,
Sure.
the few people that really,
Right,
but,
we all can, if you know your
Exactly.
grandparents, you know things you have to do
but
sometimes. when
it's,
times
and it's
get-
not gonna change. I don't see anything that's gonna change this.
Well, we
It's
did
gonna
the
probably
increase.
keep going up a little bit.
prior, and it was, but it didn't look as extreme because we did it in 3 phases.
Right.
We broke that out, so those 371 and
It
658.
didn't
Yeah.
feel so.
Yeah.
Right,
We were
and we
worried about the
phased it
371.
in
Mhm.
over that time. And
That's-
people were saying, well, golly, we just got an increase, we just had an
Yeah.
increase. This way, it's,
Well, and that's, and
one
again,
shot
this is
deal.
where, you know, I think from a philosophical standpoint, this is why, you know, 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to take this tact, was that, so instead of it being, because, I mean, my first sewer increase we did, I think we raised the sewer by like $20
Yeah.
in one shot,
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that was just sewer, and then we did, I think, electric maybe a year or two after that, we did another water one.
That
and,
hurt.
Like,
That
I mean,
was
in those, I mean, you were there, you
That was
you got all those
major.
people, it was huge, you know, and again, but that was because of the long-term control plan, that was because of the federal mandate that we had, and so, like, and again, that's where I come back to what I said about sending out 4 different bills. Because, you know, I think it's really hard when someone, because they look at the bill and they go, well, it's, yeah, I mean, I'm having to put out $10 more, right? But it's a little bit on this one, and it's some on this, and so, so I agree, I mean, I agree with everything you guys have said, it's tough, it's probably the worst part of this job. It's the worst part of their job, I can promise you that.
We really pushed hard though to say, it cannot be,
These numbers were higher than this before
Yes.
it came here, I want you to
Yes.
know
Okay,
that, so
that's helpful.
we have cut, I bet I've cut at least 50% of the sewers expected stuff, either pushing it back or just said, we just can't do it.
yeah.
So, it doesn't make it any easier, cause it's still $10.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's still $10, but it's still,
$120 a
But it's
year.
not
Yeah.
20.
it's not 20, you know?
Yeah, I just don't see how we have any choice.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, that's kind of the point, is they've done all this work. I mean, that's not our job, is to decide whether or not to do it, it's just to do it and how
Well,
to
it's,
do it.
you know, so the role of the Utility Rate Advisory Board is to, number one, take a look at this information, make sure that we're not, you know,
Gouging
that we're not
on-
gouging,
Yeah.
that we're not out of bounds, right? Ultimately, the goal of the Utility Rate Advisory Board is to review these things yearly, is to ask questions, is to be able to give, after you've reviewed all the information and you've asked the questions, all this stuff, to give a recommendation to the council. Now, at the end of the day, you guys could decide to say, hey, we just think it has to be a $5 maximum. And that means that I and Leslie have to go back and go, okay, so where do we cut? Kind of a thing, right? And then that's when I have to go back to the utility department heads and say, okay, what can you live without?
But have you not already done
Oh,
that?
I've already done that, yes, I've already done
I
that,
mean,
but I could do it
You
again,
just
because,
told-
yes.
You just told us you
Yes.
had already
Yeah.
done that prior
Yeah.
to presenting it.
Yeah, I actually, with Big Utility, I actually sit down with Mike Cook, our sewer, and said, okay, what is it that we can't, what is it we absolutely cannot live without? What are the things that we can push off for a couple of years? What are the things that we can, you know, those kind of things. I pushed really hard on the nitrogen thing, because I was like, well, but it's a maybe, and he goes, I'm telling you, I've been around this job long enough to know that they're gonna do something with it, because they wouldn't be asking for the testing of that every single month if they weren't going to do something with that data. So, and again, as I've said in this meeting before, previous meetings, if, you know, some of those projects end up not having to happen, I have no problem coming back and say, hey, guess what? This next increase, we should be good to go. Or hey, we only have to do $7 because we cut this project, and after he amortizes it, it changed everything or something, you know? Fortunately, it doesn't usually happen, but.
So in the past, we have had some options.
Sure.
Where we can, I don't know, it was like give it to them all at once,
Mhm.
or step it up or something like that. It doesn't look like we really have that option this time around.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is that there were some times where there were some different options where we could do kind of everything for the sewer up front and then delay stormwater and water to different times, or we could do more this year and then do less next year, or some things like that, some timing things like that. Baker Tilly didn't come up with those different options, but again, here's the deal, at the end of the day, if you guys have an interest in us going back and saying, hey, what are some different options? I don't have a problem with doing that if that's what you would prefer.
But what you're referring to, like in '23, we went, and it was, just for instance, sewer was gonna be $2.29 increase, water was 34 cents, stormwater was 30 cents.
yes.
Electric was $3, which made the increase of like $6.95. And then we come right back in '24 and did it all over again, and it was $13 then, because that added to the $6.95. We had to go
Okay.
and increase it another 71 cents, another 61 cents, another,
So it was an increase of
$4.
$6 and then an increase of $7?
yeah,
Okay.
from what I can remember, that's what I'm looking at. But yeah, altogether, it was like, it was gonna be an approximate what they kept breaking out. They were hopeful of a $10 per year increase, or per month, same way.
And-
But then they were breaking it out, instead of hitting it with all the $10 all at once, then we broke it out 24 cents, 28 cents, 20.
Because I think the other thing is with water, it was 34 cents, 71 cents,
Right.
71 cents, right?
Right.
And so it was like,
Uh-huh.
well, with that amount, why don't we
It-
just all do it out up front?
Yeah,
and-
it was
and that kind of stuff.
$1.76 for water
Yep.
in total, and stormwater was $1.52.
Yeah. Mhm.
Electric was $14.98, so it,
But this is our biggest increase that has ever been recommended, right?
Well, so the way in which actually, so I'm looking at our last rate plan, and we actually had, if this is the one we followed, which was February 10th of '23,
yeah, that's
was
what I'm looking at.
593 was the first year, and 1191 was the
Was the
next
next
year.
one.
So we actually had a larger increase in 25, 24, because we didn't do anything in 25, that's what
Yeah.
this one's about. So,
Yeah.
so in 24, last year we did a larger increase.
It was just in
Different
It was
increments.
two
different.
chunks.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I thought it was smaller all around, like it was, I don't remember what they were, but if it was 6, then 7, then something.
Yeah.
And now we're asking for a $10 increase every year. So that means if my bill is $225 right now, then it's gonna be $235 every month, and then it's gonna be $245.
In 27.
Right, and then it's gonna be $255.
In 28,
Okay.
yes.
Approximately, now you
Approximately.
gotta
I mean,
think
sure.
about if your water's less, then your sewage is gonna be less than it was if it was. this
All those, yeah,
right
all
now.
Right,
those back.
but generally
Electric,
speaking,
yeah.
I see a $10 increase, and that's,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I see what you're
Um,
saying. Yeah, see what I was gonna say, what I had was, yeah, I had in 23 was $5.93 increase, and then in 24 was an $11.91 increase.
Yeah, I think that's what we did.
So it was actually a total of about $17.
That was
then.
about,
Yeah, 17.
yeah, about,
before
yeah,
I-
17, yeah.
Okay.
17-ish dollars, yeah, over the 2-year period. But if we would have followed that same plan,
And kept it going.
25 would have been another $11.91.
Okay,
So again, you're right at that $10 mark roughly across the board
Okay,
for the
okay.
3-year period. So, but we didn't do that in 25 because we said, okay, well, let's just go back to Baker Tilly and see where we're at. And that's what came out of, that's how this plan came out.
did we have a meeting on
So,
this?
On what part?
The not doing anything in 25?
So that's what, so in 24, the plan was in
Oh, okay.
23, we were, sorry, I gotta back up here. I gotta go back in my memory. 22, we met for the first time,
Okay.
about the 3-year plan. So met in 22, approved the 23 increase.
Okay.
Met in 23, approved the 24 increase. Met in 24, and I think the plan, actually, you know what, 24's got pushed back.
Yeah.
24's got pushed back. We
Okay.
were later with 24, which is why we didn't do the 25 and just did the 3-year update. if that makes sense.
I was just wondering if just how much am I forgetting?
You're,
So-
you're not forgetting a lot. You're not forgetting a lot.
Okay.
Because 24 got pushed back, and I don't remember exactly the reason. I don't know if it was like we couldn't get a meeting together, or there was something that happened that pushed back 24's increase. So instead of doing 24's increase at the beginning of the
Carry it
year,
through.
we did it like halfway through the year or something like that.
Yeah.
If I
They
recall.
couldn't get the report.
Maybe that, oh yeah, it was the
We
report
couldn't
issue.
get the report in time. They had
That's
a
right.
delay on
You're right.
something, and something.
You're right, Karen.
Something
Yes.
wasn't matching up,
So
so
that's
they
why
had to
it
go
wasn't
back and redo
specifically the
it.
February or,
It's terrible.
Put that down.
sorry.
Yeah,
I'm getting animated, I apologize.
we
So-
couldn't get our reports, and so we couldn't have them increase because
So
we
that
couldn't
created
back
the
it up.
difference. Yes, you're right,
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because I was gonna say, if I recall right, council wants a review every year. to
every
make
year
sure
they
that
want to
it's
review.
Still
Yes.
on track for, this is the plan that we should still be on.
So I
Well,
guess.
actually,
yeah.
we're a little cheaper. If
Well,
we
so that's what I was gonna say, in
yeah.
some ways, I guess you could see it as, is if we were supposed to be 1191 and now
Yeah.
we're at 10 something, then I guess theoretically we're less.
Yeah.
People don't give a
We
rat
could
crap
use that
about
in-
that, but yes, that is,
It
but
might
it
help
is
in
versus
conversation,
what
but-
it was supposed to be, it is slightly less.
Well, that's $2, $2.
Well, that's true, it's $2 less than what we had originally.
That's a half a Starbucks.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be rude about
Quarter,
that.
maybe.
I'm just, I'm like, seriously?
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
Oh.
that age have Starbucks?
It's,
I am telling you.
no, it's
they're-
insane,
I
I
must-
mean,
I guess
Yeah.
we're humble
They,
folk.
they
We
would
don't.
order out food for lunch and, you know,
no.
it's just, and I love them, I mean, I love there, but it's just like, it's, you know.
it's just
My
money,
kids
right?
did that,
It's just money.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah. If you go to Starbucks, which it's not very often, but the mornings I do go to Starbucks, which maybe once a month, maybe. When I go to Starbucks in the morning, at that time, it's a whole line of children.
Like,
It's a whole line of children.
They would come in late to
Yes.
school and we'd be like,
Yes.
how can you be late and have Starbucks?
And have a
Well,
Starbucks in
I
your
have
hand.
Starbucks.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's an
like,
interesting
okay.
thing, so. So anyways, what would you like to do? Would you like to stick with the plan? Would you like to try to do something different? Do you want us to go back to the financial advisors and ask for something different? Do you want to say no to everything? Please don't do that, but you can. It's your prerogative.
Do we make a motion? if we-
Yeah. I need a motion
I
and a
need to make
second.
a motion that we go forward with the plan. I just don't see any way around it.
Just to ask the question,
Please do.
is there any, let me think through my question. Based on what's coming up this coming year, would there be any reason to stair step it at all? But then, of course, that makes 28 more painful.
Right.
Yeah, you're saying do less this year, more the next year, more the following
Yeah.
year?
I mean, I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah.
Honestly, I really would.
Yeah.
I can go along with your motion, but.
I mean, I don't,
I think when Mayor and I initially had conversations, we were trying to keep it consistent across the board, so we didn't have that big
Okay.
bump at year 3 or whatever. I mean, I personally, I mean, I have RMC, so I don't have our electric, but, so mine's a little bit, my bills are a little bit different, but I would rather see it just be consistent across the board than have a $5 increase and then next year a $15 increase and then the following year a $30 increase, or whatever the amounts
Whatever
may
the
be.
amounts would-
Right.
Or would the reverse be better, but really that's kind of what we do. There's just a 7-cent increase between 26 and 27, and then it's a drop by 20 cents or whatever,
Yeah.
23 cents, 22 cents, I don't know, something.
and I don't know what again, I don't know what the council's gonna wanna do, because they've not seen these numbers yet, because you guys are the first ones to get to see them. I don't know what they'll want to do. I know that, I don't know. They've been a little bit of both in the past. I've seen where they've wanted stair step, and then other times I've seen them wanting to be flat, and
When we have 2 new members on council that
Yep.
haven't been through this
that
process.
haven't been through this process. That's a very good point.
So,
Yep.
And then psychologically, I'm just trying to think as a homeowner,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know if I pay that much attention. I might be like, okay, shorter showers, we're.
Yeah. Turn the lights off.
Yes,
let
Yeah.
everybody
exactly.
Yeah.
Put a sweater on.
Right, So, you know, I might not even notice
Mhm.
$10 increase, and maybe generally speaking, people wouldn't. Honestly, I don't think I
Oh,
noticed
no,
the
they
increases.
notice. They notice 10
They will definitely notice, but here's the thing
They
is.
notice because they calculate kilowatts. We have customers, city has customers that actually calculate their kilowatts and the prices per kilowatt. So, looking at it on the flip side, they do notice.
Okay.
And the majority notice. There are some that do not,
That would
just
be me,
because
so,
the
okay.
increases are just prevalent in everything right now. It's
Yeah.
not just this,
Yeah.
it's, everything's going up. Everything's changed, funding's changed. There's so many changes hitting them right now.
Mhm.
And going forward, if this is not like, okay, we're gonna do this next month, they're gonna predominantly be through the coldest part of the winter, hopefully, before they see it.
Okay.
So therefore, they may not, I can't say it won't hurt them,
Yeah.
but it may not hurt as badly.
And we'll be
As it
coming
would
into
right
the
now.
summer sewage credit,
Summer sewage rate
Correct.
too, yeah.
So
yeah.
if they're gonna get hit with it, I mean, we're all in it together, but if we're gonna get hit with that increase, we'd much rather be informed and see it coming than blindsided by, okay. Because they forget, all, down the board and all people that I've talked to that I get calls from or texts from or whatever, it's like, didn't we just have an increase last year? Didn't this just, and now you're doing it again? That's what we were hearing for the 3 increments,
Mhm.
you know,
Didn't you
It's
just do
more-
it?
yeah.
Well, yeah, but we did it for a third less than what we would have done it
Right.
if we would have done it all
Right.
at once.
So,
but-
so they do question it, and they do ask, and they do notice even a
Sure.
kilowatt, they notice, a majority anyway.
Well, and I'll say maybe 2 things about that. First is that, you know, anybody that calls into our utility office that has questions about their usage, I mean, you know, Natalie in our office
Yeah.
does a great job of working through things and talking about, okay, well, last May, or let's say in December, right? Last December, you had the exact same usage, so it's not necessarily up, but you may be experiencing, maybe or maybe this month you're using more, and that's not because we did an increase, but it's because you're actually using more.
Yeah.
And actually, we can go through, is it 2 years worth?
Mhm.
We can usually at least do 2 years worth of usage, so they can actually, so our utility office can actually say, well, you know, we noticed that in May, you started to have a much bigger usage than normal. Have you checked your toilets? Have you made sure there's not water running somewhere? Have you, those kind of things. We've also found where there's areas that individuals all of a sudden start using a heck of a lot more electricity, and then they get mad at, not mad, but they do come
Yeah,
in
they
and they
get
get
upset.
frustrated, and then we're like, well, did you do something last June? Oh, well, we put in a new pool. Oh, well, that could be why you're paying more electric, right? Or things like that. Now, it doesn't happen all the time, but it's little things like that that can make those adjustments, and, but I do think they see it. I think there's definitely a population that doesn't notice it, they'll just pay it because it's, like for us, I mean, we notice it obviously, but it's kind of like,
And
that's one of the
that's
first things that go out. That's one of the first bills that go out, before we do the other things, so, anyways.
I got one quick
Yeah.
question. Do you send, and I don't know, because I'm just on the electric portion of this right now. Do you send out, say, if this gets passed, do you send anything out to your customers, letting them know that, hey, your bill's gonna go up $10, or you just let them see it when it gets the first bill?
Good question.
To let them know, and maybe you could explain to them a little bit
Yeah.
why we're doing this. It's still not gonna ease the pain.
Right,
However,
right.
some people will say, okay, now I understand because you're doing this, gonna do this.
Yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
people make up their own. If they don't have the
That's
facts,
true.
they're just gonna create
true.
something
So
in
I
their
didn't know if
mind.
that's anything you
so
do or not.
usually, so I'll say, obviously, we usually talk about it in the city council meeting, board of works meetings, I usually talk about it in my state of the city address, I usually talk about it in my lunch with mayor program. We usually put something in the newsletter that we send out. So we try to do with those kind of things. They're in the, like, way back past, I did send a letter out to people individually to say, hey, here's what's happening. That was before we had the newsletter.
Okay.
But I don't know, I guess my question maybe to you, Leslie, and maybe you know this, maybe you don't, but does all of our utility customers get our newsletter?
Yeah.
We email it
Okay.
to individuals.
Okay,
I don't get a
like a paper
hard
copy?
copy, so I
Yeah.
don't know if,
So I mean, so the only thing I would
Inserted
be
in
curious about would be is that if, cause I agree with you, Doug. I think if I'd be curious to know how many of our customers don't get emailed bills. Because it would be those individuals that would be effectively left out of the conversation or left out of the notice, if you will. Now, the other thing in that kind of same regard, I would say is, you know, if, for instance, this board wanted to decide or wanted to ask for requests to the council to delay an implementation, you could ask for it to be delayed rather than it being done in February. You could say your recommendation is to have it started in June, or I don't know when summer sewage rate hits. Does that hit in
April.
May, or in April? Okay,
Yeah.
so I probably wouldn't wanna go, well, I guess it probably doesn't matter, does it? It probably wouldn't matter with the summer sewage rate one way or another. By the way, if you don't know what summer sewage rate is we lock in the sewage rate based on is April's usage? Or is it March's usage?
March.
March's
'Cause
water
it-
usage.
and it-
Before you start using your summer.
Before you start using, so you're not paying, you're paying more for water, like if you use more water, you're paying more for water, but
But
your
not the
sewage
sewage.
is staying the same so that we're not
Whatever
penalizing
you're
you for
locked in.
watering your flowers outside. So your sewer
Water.
rate gets locked in for the summer portion. So if you used, so in March, if you use 4,000 gallons, your sewer rate for the whole summer is gonna be 4,000 gallons of sewer.
You still pay
So
the
the
total
idea
water,
is,
but.
don't wash at all.
In March, you wanna really look.
And then you're gonna have a huge, you're gonna call and say, well, when it comes off, you're gonna be like, what happened?
Yeah.
It's like your March
But
to
your,
April
yeah, but your
usage.
water bill,
Yeah.
your water bill obviously will fluctuate based on how much you use in water, but on the sewer side, you get locked in for the summer rates. So if you go and use water, you're not getting penalized, if you will, so. So I'm sorry, we have a motion, go ahead, Doug.
No, I'm done.
Okay,
So we have a
Okay, so
motion.
your
We have a
motion was
motion.
to accept as is? I second.
okay. So as chair, do you wanna call for the vote?
Do we have a vote? Wait, I probably have to say it all
Yeah,
out.
I was gonna say, you can just say all those in favor of the
Okay,
motion.
all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, officially.
That is unanimous,
Unanimous.
so, thank you. So as you're going through, again, I don't expect you to keep reading these after tonight, but if you do go through these and read through these, or you have other questions that come up, please don't hesitate to email me or Leslie. We're happy to answer those questions, or like tonight with the electric thing, if I don't know the answer, I can get the answer. Appreciate your work and your effort. I don't remember exactly when we have this on the agenda. I don't know that we have it on the
We
agenda yet, do
don't.
we?
No.
So we'll have to get it on the agenda, it's just a matter of when. So-
Although there is a motion and it's been voted in, if you go through these and you read it and you do come up with a question or something that we feel is necessary before it's presented to the board, you still have
Yeah.
the leeway to go, hey, what about this, you
Yeah.
know?
And you guys-
Although we voted that we
Yeah.
will agree to it or present it, we'd like to make sure that we understand that completely.
And you guys-
Before she actually
Yeah.
presents it to the,
Have all the contact
Council.
information,
yeah.
and if you all want to have an additional meeting, all you need to do is let me know, and we'll coordinate schedules, and we'll get another meeting. So, just, the chair has to call it though, so.
That way, if you look at it and you really see something, you know, and that you want to flag,
Yep.
you still have time to do that before it's actually
Sure.
presented.
Yep.
Okay.
I mean, if that's
My
something
guess
you
is-
want to do.
Okay.
Would we have first conversation the last meeting of the year, or first meeting in January?
I'd probably wait till the first meeting in
Okay,
January.
first meeting in January.
Okay, so that, I should plan on presenting this to the council.
Well, so,
Is that
yeah,
what
so-
The second Tuesday.
Second Tuesday in January,
Yep.
yeah, which would be the 13th. Is that what you have? And like I said, that's contingent on Baker Tilly being here to be able to present, which I'm hopeful they will, because they really need to be here to present how they got to those numbers and stuff. I cannot, obviously, I just did it, but I'd rather them do it.
Yeah.
Because they can talk about the methodology that I can't, so. Well, thank you for your efforts tonight. Thank you for your diligence and for asking great questions. I appreciate it. I know this isn't a fun board to be on, but I do appreciate your work. I do appreciate your insight too, because the great part about this board is we got a bunch of people from different aspects and different places, and so I think it brings a lot of good dialogue and good information to me, so. With that, would you like to adjourn the meeting, and then I'll turn it over?
Meeting's adjourned unless there's any, or maybe I should say, is there any objection to adjourning? If not, then we shall adjourn.